So I have been working on my book for a little while now, and I have gotten to a point in this process where I've been inspired to share some of my thoughts on things. As someone who is very self-aware, I'm always reflecting, but it's a bit different right now with the writing along with questions I'm being asked, people who are showing back up into my life, and topics that are falling into my lap. As someone who was raised on love, introduced to religion early, and also grew up in this patriarchal society centered around men and how they want for women to be, and an upbringing that sometimes conforms to that, I find that I see the world a little differently than many people that I meet and end up connecting with. That said, I've spent most of my life moving through the world with one core belief, and that's that people are people first. Before gender, before sexual orientation, before race, people are people first. Therefore, if you are hungry, I'm going to feed you. If you are struggling and I have access to something that I can help, I'm going to offer it. Most of the time without you even having to ask. That's how I treated my friends. That's how I treated my family. That's how I treat strangers. And naturally, that's how I treated the men I have allowed into my life. You being a man who is showing interest in me wouldn't change that. Because to me, who I am is who I am across the board. How I do anything is how I do everything. I genuinely believed that this is how we were all supposed to be moving, with humanity, with humility, and care for one another. But my experiences specifically with men forced me to confront a very painful reality. And it took me almost 35 years and a lot of disappointment to finally understand that. I had to start listening, like really listening, not all the time what men are saying, but how they are moving, to how they've been socialized and how they show up, especially when they quote unquote like you. And that's the crazy part. Because here's what I learned. When some men claim to like you, they actually don't lean into your humanity. They challenge it. For instance, let's say you are a woman who worked your way up, build a career in something you're passionate about, made yourself self-sufficient, created something meaningful. Then you meet a man and there's mutual interest. Instead of respect, you'll get dismissal. Instead of admiration, you get indifference. Instead of support, you get subtle undermining. You'll hear things like, I don't care about degrees, I don't care about accolades, and they literally will not show you support in that area. Side note, if I didn't have the degrees and the accolades, I wouldn't be allowed to go 50-50 with you since you can't afford to take care of us both. But I digress. Anyway, you'll hear things like, I don't care about accolades, I don't care about degrees. But here's the part that changed everything for me. I started thinking, now, if that same exact person was a man in his life, a friend, a brother, a colleague, he would absolutely show respect. He would acknowledge it. He would support it. So now, when something feels off, I remove gender from the equation, which should already be done. Hello, we're all humans. Anyway, and I asked myself one question. If I were his homeboy, would this behavior make him look like a hater? And if the answer is yes, then I have my answer. Because being a woman in somebody's life should never mean being treated with less respect, less empathy, or less humanity. And what I've observed is this: the lack of empathy, the lack of humility, the subtle jealousy, the quiet competition. It doesn't always show up everywhere, but it shows up consistently in how some, very many men, treat the women they claim to care about. And that is very telling. That realization really shifted everything for me. It's why I no longer force connections that don't feel aligned. It's why I don't romanticize potential. And that's exactly why that whole friends with benefits situation never worked for me. And I don't recommend it. Because let's be real, the friends part is always very silent. And they believe that sex and a couple of hours of their presence is all the benefits you're going to get. Meanwhile, you have yet to climax with any or majority of them. So what benefits are you really getting, sis? In those dynamics, men don't lean into empathy. They don't lean into humility. And what ends up happening is this: a lot of women can't even call the man who is actively benefiting from them and their energy. While he's consuming your time, your presence, your body, your emotional space, He's also telling himself and reminding you, we are not together. You are not my girl. And in his mind, that becomes justification. Justification to not show up, justification to not pour back into you, justification to not expend resources, effort, or care in your favor. So now you're in a situation where you are given, he's taken, but hide behind the label that absolves him of responsibility. And the reality is, you'll be lucky if you even get a DoorDash meal out of it. I mean, seriously. That's not mutual, that's not balanced, and it's definitely not beneficial. That's depletion disguised as connection. And I've been single for 16 years, and people a lot of times try to shame me for that. People will laugh when I say I'm at peace with the fact that I can go 16 plus more. They don't realize how easy it's been, especially the amount I have practiced abstinence on and off since about age 24 as well. Very easy. If you walked in my shoes and you understand what it is I am saying out of my mouth right now, you will know exactly what I mean. Because I would rather stand firmly in my humanity than shrink it to fit into someone else's limitations. Bottom line and moral of the story is this. If you can't treat me like a human being first, regardless of my gender or relationship status, then you have absolutely no place in my space, and you will be removed expeditiously. And lastly, as a side note, stop asking me things like, what do you bring to the table? Because when you lack love, humility, humanity, and self-respect, when I tell you that this is what I bring to the table, you won't even be able to fathom the endless amount of benefits awarded to you in a safe space like that. The end.